Good afternoon, viewers. Thank you for joining us for this live session. Would like to discuss a couple of things, and specifically with regards to school land protection and why we need to defend our public spaces, specifically which includes our public schools. And just I think a quick brief on what Shule Yangu is. So Shule Yangu is a national network of stakeholders that are diverse in their own sense. So we have stakeholders from government. It brings together civil society sector and the private sector with a view of establishing a collaborative work that is intended to help in the school protection efforts. The work around school protection began in 2015 in earnest, following the successful hiving of reclaiming of the Langata Road playground on 19th of January 2015. 3 days later, we had a presidential directive that was issued by the current president, that all public schools in the country must be titled. And this set off a series of activities, both within government and the various actors who had been involved prior to the directive in helping defend public schools across the country. And some of the developments that happened following the directive by the president was the gazettement of a task force that brought together various actors from the Ministries of Education, the Ministry of Lands, the National Lands Commission, the Director of Public Prosecution, and Shule Yangu Alliance, amongst other key stakeholders. And this task force was tasked primarily with accelerating the titling of public schools across the country, which until then were the number of schools that had been titled prior to the gazettement of this task force were only about slightly over 5,000. That's about 5,226 schools. Since then, we have about 12,000 schools titled across the country, and some of the achievements that the task force which Shule Yangu is a part of have included issuance of title deeds to schools across the country, provision of legal support to schools with legal cases across the country. We've also conducted sensitization forums and initiatives to school heads across Kenya to be able to bring them to the fore in terms of what they need to know in terms of with regards to protecting public school land. The other things that have happened since is that we've seen a lot of agency amongst communities through the activation efforts that we've done in our communities to enable citizens understand why it is important for them to have schools titled and what it means to have a school near you titled. And so we've seen a lot of interest from citizens around these issues. And today, in this session, we'd like in the next few minutes to just think through what are some of the things we need to know as Kenyans in regards to defending public school land. And this session comes in the wake of reports that we've had about schools like City Primary School, which was recently in the news regarding their school land. Which had a spat between them and a church, and we've seen other types of schools. We've seen the Goodrich schools in Mukuru, which had previously been grabbed and now, which had previously been grabbed and allocated to a private entity and has now been reclaimed. And we think now more than ever we need to have this conversation on how we protect public school land. And especially coming in the wake of a government initiative around 100% attrition rate by school kids, and we believe at Shule Yangu that we cannot. The only way we can achieve full attrition, 100% attrition of schools, is if we are able to secure the land upon which education is founded on. So there are a couple of things we want to answer now. In this session as we look through why is it important that we title schools, and there are a couple of reasons why we need to have schools titled. There are a couple of reasons why we need schools titled. One of them is to reduce the disputes that would emanate from land whose ownership is in question, and we've seen cases of such in the recent past. We know about the Ruaraka case, where you have schools land that was previously set apart for the establishment of a school, and the transfers were never done, and today, decades later, it proves to be a challenge. The second one is to attractive and donor support. We have schools across the country who have received expressions of interest by various development partners to come in and help develop the schools, but because they don't have any ownership details, they're not able to establish and prove their form of ownership. Then it's been hard for them to be able to receive the services that are intended to complement what support the government is offering to the schools across the country. So the other question I would like to ask, in this session is, can we convert public school land into private land? And this question comes in the backdrop of the types of lands. We have three types of land majorly in Kenya. The first one is public, we have private land, and community land. And private land, and all these types of land are captured and enunciated in our constitution around the issues of land. But the question around whether we can convert public land into private land, and that's a big no. And this cannot happen without consultation with the National Education Board and without approval from the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury. And why we say this is because all public schools in the country currently by law are required to be titled under the name of the CS Treasury. And when we say the CS Treasury, we don't mean the actual name of the holder of that office, but we mean that the title should read, if it's a school called XYZ Primary School, then the title should read XYZ Primary School in trust, no, the Cabinet Secretary in trust of XYZ Primary School. And this is because the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Treasury is officially the custodian of all public assets in the country. So the other question I want to look at is, can we allocate public land to a private person? And why this question is important is because we have seen cases of land that was initially set aside for public use, and specifically for the construction of schools, having been allocated to private developers or private persons, and this is a big no. And land cannot be allocated. Public land cannot be allocated to a private person without, unless it's on a couple of issues. One of them is compulsory acquisition, where land needs to be acquired to certain people. We have also seen land that is donated, or a transfer that is done, or a surrender that is conducted, and all these issues cannot be effected without the approval of a county assembly. The other question we'd like to answer during this session is the issue of trustees, and we've had a lot of cases, or we've experienced a lot of cases where trustees have been at the center of land grabbing cases in this country. So you have schools across the country which have lost their parcels of land courtesy of the efforts of their trustees who have been appointed to act in trust of that school, and it's been a challenge. And so the question, the message you want to send out to Kenyans is that if you're a trustee, or you know anyone who's a trustee, or the role of trustees insofar as protection of public school land goes, trustees cannot transfer land, or cannot transact around issues of land on their own behalf, because they act in trust of that public school land. The other question that we want to know is, as a citizen, perhaps the question you may have is, how do you get involved in protecting public school land? And the best way to begin is to establish knowing the status of public school land. So basically, you want to know whether that school is titled, whether you want to know whether the school has any form of protection, and how you go around this is by asking the head teacher. And if it's a head teacher asking this question, then the head teacher needs to find out from the members of the board who may have historical information around these issues. And once they're able to get this information, if the school is not titled, then they can reach out to the county coordinators, NLC county coordinators, to be able to receive the information they need on whether the school is titled. And if it's not, then they begin the process on how to apply for a title deed. Applying to NLC, so they need to make a formal application to the National Lands Commission. And I think it's important to mention at this point that the National Land Commission has regional offices in all the 47 counties across the country, and it's for easier reach of schools and public utilities across the country. And so when they formally apply to the NLC, then the NLC is able to determine through their own framework whether the school is titled, and if the school is titled, then the question is to find out whether the title is issued in the name of the CS Treasury. If the school is not titled and it has a letter of allotment, then the processes that would require to be undertaken to ensure a title is issued would then be undertaken. The third one is if a school was already if the school land had been donated by an individual who in this case we call a donor, then the process begins on how to transfer the land from the individual's name, who's a donor, to the name of the CS Treasury, so that the land can officially move from the individual's name to read now under the name of the school. But the other way that citizens can do is also to apply if the schools are located within settlement schemes, then citizens. Some of the things that school heads and citizens can do is to apply to the Ministry of Lands, so that the Ministry of Land can initiate the discharging of charge that is on those lands, so that the titles can be issued effectively. The other question that you would want to handle is what happens when you donate land. Some of us, Kenyans, there are Kenyans whose parents donated land in the years that have gone. And what does it take? If a Kenyan has land that would want to donate to a public school for the purposes of upholding and entrenching the right to education, how do you go about this? And when you donate land, what you do is that you file surrender documents to the Ministry with the National Lands Commission, and these surrender documents are what are forwarded to the NLC for processing of an issuance of the title later. What if the donor the question is, what if the donor has died? So we have land that was donated previously by Kenyans who have since passed on, and the land was never transferred from their name into the name of the school. And so the process that is required to be undertaken at this point is that in the wake of the death of a donor who's donated land to a public school, then the Attorney General, acting on behalf of the Ministry of Education, should be able to follow up on through the law of succession to ensure that the school is eventually titled. So those are some of the main issues that we would want to raise, in terms of protecting public schools, and also to help citizens be able to find their footing insofar as school land protection is involved. And perhaps lastly, as we go through to any questions that have been asked in this session, the other question is, what are the strategies of protecting public school land? And the first strategy from where we stand is ensuring that the school land is fenced. So ensuring that the school land is fenced helps to reduce the agency and the interest of grabbers amongst us who have a demonstrated high sense of greed, to grab anything that is not documented. So titling of school, the other bit is fencing of school, and the fencing of school is, besides having a school title, what is important for Kenyans to know is that even if a school is titled but it is not fenced, it is still at risk of being grabbed. So it's important to use the alumni associations or any other frameworks the community can use and employ to ensure that they are able to effectively support the schools to get a fence. And the fence could range from a perimeter fence to a barbed wire and to the other conventional or traditional ways of fencing that we've seen across the country in the counties, depending on what the strategy, depending on the strength, financial holding capacity of the school. The other bit is a strategy to protect public school land from being grabbed is registering a caution or a caveat, and this can be done at the land registries. If you suspect that land is at risk of being grabbed or is at risk of being encroached on, then you can as well register a caution. And this is a legal process that is recognized by law to be able to prevent any transfer or any transactions on that land until the caution is removed. The third strategy would be to report to the institutions, and we have a number of institutions that are involved in the school titling and fencing issues. We have the Ministry of Education, we have the Ministry of Lands, we have the National Lands Commission who are part of this process. We have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We have the Director of Public Prosecution. We have the police and I think that is the first point of contact with our schools. And if all these processes and efforts fail to get any feedback from citizens, then citizens can also reach out to the Commission on Administrative Justice, that is the Ombudsman, who is able to look at the corrective measures in trying to address the efforts and the plights of citizens for that end. The third one is constant vigilance. I think it's important for us to emphasize the need for communities to always want to be interested and show interest in what happens in a school. And for school heads, I think it's also important for us to mention that it is always to the advantage of the school for a school to be able to engage and open up their school to the community around them, and that helps to increase a sense of ownership and increase a sense of collaboration amongst the community that lives within the school. And so if an imminent case of grabbing or encroachment comes up, then the school is able to almost have what you call a human fence standing up against the grabbers. Lastly, we would like to emphasize the need to use alumni associations, and one of the partners within the Shule Yangu Alliance movement, that is Future First Kenya, work a lot with alumni associations. So if you have a school, if you are a Kenyan and you have a school and you come from a school that doesn't have an alumni association, then Future First are the people who will help you establish an alumni group or an alumni association in your school. And if you have an alumni group or an association that is dormant, that needs a bit of reigniting, then Future First also help to work with alumni associations to increase their reach and increase their effectiveness towards getting involved in the school. And part of how you get involved in the school is by ensuring that schools are titled, and we hold that using alumni associations and using alumni groups in this country are one of the most effective ways of defending public school land, because all of us went to a school, and if all of us went to a school, then all of us are alumni of a particular school across this country. So as a quick action point, I'd like to urge us, after this session, go back to your school, find out if your school is titled, find out if your school is at risk, and if it's at risk, use the processes and the information that we've shared in this live session to be able to support their schools in getting their title deed or in becoming protected. You can always reach us at Shule Yangu as well, and our number is 0705 087 070. You can also visit our website. You can visit our social media handles or the platforms that belongs to any of our partners at Shule Yangu. We have Transparency International, we have Power 254, we have Future First Kenya, we have Ansefa, and other partners who have helped put together the alliance that today is supporting schools to get titled, including the associations of school heads across the country. We have KEPSHA, that's a Kenya Primary School Heads Association, and the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association. All these are partners who've come together and helped form an alliance that supports government and complement the efforts of government in accelerating the ownership and protection of schools across the country. Thank you so much.